Matt, without further ado, I appreciate you hopping on. Why don't you kind of give us a quick intro on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Matt Ventre. I'm the founder and lead designer of PlayArchitect Games. I've been at that for about 5 years, maybe six, right? I guess unofficially kicked it off in 2019 with some projects. And I've been into gaming my pretty much my whole life. I got a Nintendo Entertainment System when I was five, and it started, yeah, old guy. And that started my love affair with games, and it transitioned later on to Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, and still maintain video games. And I took my creative streak and put it to work in the game design industry. And also, I've been a lifelong athlete and lover of sports and athletic pursuits. So, I found a way to kind of combine those two things together, I think, with some of the things I've been doing with Play Architect Games, and happy to talk to you about them here today.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole lot to unpack there. So let's start from there. What does Play Architect Games, like what games do they make?
So there are two games. So before we get too far into it, Play Architect Games is me. It's a one guy operation, so very independent studio. So there are two games out right now. The first one, the flagship game, is Legacy of the Cage, and that is, I've sort of rebranded it. I originally called it a dice-based action RPG for MMA, and that kind of makes sense. But I kind of shortened that down. So now I'm calling it a simulation RPG. There's a reason for that, because it plays really well in the sports sim crowd, and it plays really well with the traditional D&D RPG crowd. So there's kind of a niche crossover there. So that's one, and then the other one is one I did for a game jam on Drive Through RPG called Space Sport. You're sensing a sports theme here. Which is a little bit more of a story engine, freeform game. There's like one single die mechanic, but it's a sci-fi theme. It's sort of a space combat via sports. Done for a game jam, so had a limited amount of time to put it together, but it's done pretty well. People have actually responded pretty nicely to it, even though it's a smaller sort of endeavor. So those are the two games right now. Legacy of the Cage 2 is the successor to the original. That's under development. The manuscript is pretty close to being finished, almost time for play testing. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on these days. Couple other things in the wings, but those are the big ones.
Sure, absolutely. Can you go a little bit more in depth on what Legacy of the Cage is? Because I like the idea of having, like you said, it's like a simulation of, it seems like MMA and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how I landed on this too, because it was, God, it had to be 2020 pandemic era, right? So we're all playing a lot of games. We're all kind of stuck inside. And I was going through my process. So one of the things I like to do as much as possible is this thing where it's called the idea muscle. Every day you come up with 10 ideas. It could be, a set theme, or it could be just random ideas, but it has to be 10 new, fresh ideas every day to keep the wheels turning and the brain working. And I picked it up from a guy named James Altucher, who's an author and sort of like life, I wouldn't call him motivational speaker, but he's big in the chess world, former hedge fund manager. He's been through the ups and the downs. So if you follow his material, he kind of unlocks some of these secrets of business and life and self-improvement. And one of his hacks is 10 ideas a day. So I was doing this back in 2020, and I put this idea down, and I went, MMA RPG. And I'm like, that feels really good. MMA RPG, what would that look like? So I did 10 more ideas. And then I did 10 more ideas. And by the time I was done with like 50 ideas that day, I went, this is a thing. I have to make this thing right now. So I did, and I went through. I was actually playing a lot of D&D at the time. I think there were 2 hex crawls going on. I was running a Starfinder game. I had a long form campaign I was participating in. So we're playing all kinds of games. I was also playing a lot of Blood Bowl. I don't know if you've ever played Blood Bowl, but it's intense. So you'll see the influence of those games in this one, where you create a fighter. So you kind of take on the role of a fighter in a mixed martial arts promotion, and you start from the bottom rank. You're like a nobody. You're a total a total amateur, low stats, no skills. Basically, you got gloves and a fighter's chance. And as you play the game, you can play it either head to head. You could do it against other people, or you can actually simulate it against. There's some rules that you can use to play solo as well. Regardless of the way you choose to play, as you fight, you gain currency to upgrade your fighter. So you're just getting better and better over time, hopefully. And there's ways to unlock better stats and better moves and stuff like that. But the idea is that as you're fighting, the core mechanic is the fight. Everything revolves around you in the cage with another fighter trying to win. And it doesn't always go your way. I think the mechanics are, I've tested them pretty well. The mechanics are tuned so that, strategically you kind of know where your advantage is, but it doesn't always work out that way. And so you can go through some really cool swingy matchups where you're on top of the world and then you just get KO'd and it's like, uh-oh, the result of which could be a major injury where, you suffer some stat loss for a certain duration of time, right? So these effects compound on your fighter, and over time you build your legacy, right? You can look back over all the fights you had and kind of tell the story of where your fighter came from. And so that's really the draw from a creator's standpoint of the game. And so I've had the good fortune of having it go in front of some other folks in the simulation community, and simulation being like Stratomatic baseball, APBA football, games like that, very traditional old school 1970s sim, like almost like original spreadsheet driven stuff. And they caught wind of this and they're like, oh my God, the sim aspect of this is amazing. But you have this RPG aspect where like you can get into the simulation. It's not just me rolling dice and like hoping that Barry Bonds hits another home run. It's my guy in the cage. I hope he wins. I want him to do this. I want to strategically position him to take this guy down and then try to. And it has this feel that's it's just a little bit more than the traditional sim, but you can play it either way. And so that's really that's the basics of it. It uses a D100 roll if you're interested in the mechanics. D100 roll, and you kind of strategically tweak the percentages throughout the course of a fight to try to get that edge. And like I said, it doesn't always work. It's very much like life. Like you can prepare all you want, but like if it's not your night, it's not your night. You got to figure out how to bounce back and deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that sounds really interesting. And it sounds like it's not terribly difficult to pick up.
No, I'd say the most challenging part I think is, and this is one of the things as a designer, the challenge is, how do you make it approachable to new players is, I think the onboarding is one of the things I'm still working through, is getting new players into it a little bit quicker, because for the hardcore sort of crunchy sim guys, they can just sink their teeth into it and get it. But for a more traditional D&D RPG player, someone who's not used to doing a sport or a simulation type game, it's not as easy. So I'm working through some of that content. I had some really good feedback on that from a couple of play groups, and they're like, yeah, if there's like a 30-second primer on this, I could totally get it on the table at my shop. But if you don't have it, it's going to be a harder sell. But I'd say overall, it's not too bad to pick up once you understand how you play your action, what the math is. Super simple. There's a sheet in front of you that tells you all the numbers you're rolling against. So there's really nothing too tricky to it after you get the numbers down.
Cool. And you said that this can play with others as well as solo?
Yep. The game is designed so you can, originally, to kind of pull back the curtain a bit, originally it was designed almost exclusively to be a head-to-head style game. If you think back to my Blood Bowl influence and the D&D around the table influence, it was designed to be this thing that you would play with a group of friends, where you'd create this promotion and you'd all have your fighters and you'd run tournaments, or you'd have like a schedule where we do 10 fight cards and see who comes out on top. And it works that way very well. But then I realized I put the solo campaign in just because I thought, well, I don't think a new game is going to get D&D traction overnight. We're not going to have play groups in every corner of the country or the world. So someone, if they really want to play, I don't want them to pick the game up and be like, well, boy, I wish I had a bunch of friends who wanted to play. There has to be some way to do it. So I added this thing called The Gauntlet, which is the subtitle of the first book, which is the solo sort of adventure you can play. And it sets out 10 fighters that you can fight from the lowest rank to the champ, and you level your fighter up as you go, and you roll against them, and it's just an easy play as you go experience. But you can play head to head. It's very tuned for head to head. I'm rolling in more of the simulation solo aspect, but it's all going to be still based on like if Matt and Jordan wanted to sit down over a lunch break and just do a quick fight, you could do it really simply, and you could record the results, and we could go our merry way, and then come back 2 weeks later with powered up fighters and do it again, for the rematch.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. I've noticed there's this and maybe it's just me becoming more kind of in tune with the tabletop gaming sphere, but it seems like there's a more popularity of solo RPGs, or at least most of the time they're games that have a solo component. And I found that very interesting, and I want to know your thoughts on it, somebody who actually creates games.
Yeah, the solo thing, it took me by a bit of surprise too. I realized, I think this hits on sort of the, one or two of the pillars of like life, right? So I think that people in gaming circles sometimes, first of all, I'm fortunate that I have friends to play with online and offline. Not everybody has that advantage. So whether they don't have a friend group or they're just intimidated by, being around a table and that's just their personality or the way they are. I think that segment of the gaming population has been more recognized by creators, and they realize that there are people out there who want to play games, but they're not 100% comfortable with improvising around D&D table, and they're not happy just going to strangers on the internet and being like, let's play games, because that can, let's be frank, that can get weird, right?
Yeah,
unless you're really in the mind space to want to handle that, and not everybody is, and they shouldn't be. And so creators have found a way to take games that are traditionally run by a dungeon master or like a game master and let the game play itself against you, and you have to be thoughtful in how you come up with those challenges for players. But there are a lot of tools to do it. I think it got really popular with the name is, I think it's Mythic Game Master Simulator. It's like a super best-selling book. I think it's on Drive-Thru RPG. I picked it up. I read through it. It's just a table of like, you can run any RPG without a DM, right? It gives you the framework to make decisions on behalf of the characters in the game. Now, there's obviously a little bit more suspension of disbelief when you approach a game solo, because you can technically cheat, right? All you want. You can be like, oh, I slayed the dragon. Yay. But like, that's no fun. So people know that, and people who want to play solo games are pretty good about creating the framework in their own head. And people have done a good job of giving them tools and resources and products that are like really well made for the people who want to do that. I mean, someone wrote a solo dark, Shadow Dark. I play a lot of Shadow Dark these days. Someone wrote Solo Dark. There's the Mythic Game Master Simulator for games like D&D and Pathfinder. And a lot more creators are creating solo versions baked in to their products. So I decided that if I really want anybody to try this, knowing that like those communities don't exist yet, that there's got to be something solo for people to sink their teeth into. And it has to be compelling enough that you can like watch your fighter grow in real time so that you want to keep playing it, And I think people have done a really good job of that.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I've noticed, because I have a friend group and we play games somewhat regularly, but it's like with D&D, I'm the DM, and I have to do all the prep and everything like that, where everyone else just gets to show up, right? And so a lot of times I've been kind of pushing back games because work's kind of either been kicking my ass or it's just not like the motivation is just not there. But then I also have games like I don't know if you can see it. Like one of those is the Jaws of the Lion Gloomhaven. So it's like the beginner level of Gloomhaven, and it's like that game can be played solo, and I've only played it once with a group with two other people, and it's like that's a type of game that I would like to just put on the table and say, all right, let's play, because it's that RPG element where the levels kind of progress and your characters progress, but there's also virtually no prep work where all you do is just flip the page and that's the next map. And so like that's the type of stuff that I like. My buddy sent me a video yesterday for a game called Vantage. I don't know if it's like newer or not, but it's like kind of like that, where it's just like you're kind of exploring an open world through cards and stuff like that, and you can make decisions and stuff, and it seems like really interesting. And there's a big solo component to that. So it's again finding that these big dense games that are like these massive boxes also have a solo component, I think is massively important to its growth. Like you were saying, if I'm over here and I want to play this game, I can play Jaws of the Lion solo or Gloomhaven solo. If I'm going to drop $200 on that full Gloomhaven, I want to be able to play it when I damn well want to, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that it hits on, sort of the realization that not everybody has massive amounts of time. And as the forever DM, I'm kind of like the forever DM right now, scheduling people is super challenging. Like getting people to literally sit around a table, whether in life or virtual, is a challenge. As adults with jobs and families and different priorities, like having everybody focus on that 3 to 5 hours every couple weeks or every month is difficult. So having that like quick hitter, drop in, play, get out. I don't need you to prep. I don't need you to think. I just need you to grab your whatever stack of cards, dice, and I don't have to think about it too much. We can just get into it. Those experiences are good. There's a lot to be said about the big sweeping D&D campaign where it's like this 16-month endeavor and everybody has great. But that's not that's I think rarer these days than just being able to just sit down and be like, where's my character sheet? Oh, I forgot it. Let me roll up a new one and start slashing away. You have to be able to cater to, I think, the latter audience more than the former. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's just the way the marketplace and people's lives work these days. Yeah,
our damn people growing up and having adult lives.
Yeah, I know. It's like we're not 13 anymore. We can't sit in the basement and play video games and D&D all day,
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately.
all week, all weekend, all summer,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, cool. So you kind of went through the origins of, really, PlayArchitect Games. It sounds like that was kind of the
Yep.
inception of it all.
Yep.
What inspired you to blend like the fitness component with it? Was it just like that one particular idea, or has this always been kind of something that's been looming in the back of your mind?
I think so. One of the there's a whole philosophical thing behind this. I've had discussions with people in the past about sort of the purpose that games serve, and I don't want to get too, I don't know, in the clouds here, but games people often see as methods of escape. They're escapist tools, right? Like my life's tough, my job's hard, I work a lot, things are stressful. I just want to sit down and be the bard and sing songs and
Yeah,
like
exactly.
swing my sword, right? I think that's 100% valid way to look at a game. If that's the way you use games or enjoy games, that's perfect. Because for most of my life, that's the way I looked at games as well. Is like, I'm going to sit down in GTA 5 after work on a weekend and just plow through whatever. Like, just literally plow through stuff. Because that's something I can't do in real life. And so I'm going to do it in this game instead. But I realized maybe it's a virtue of being an old guy or, or what. I don't know what it is. I realized that it may be a combination of, my athletic pursuits as both a youth and in my older life, that games don't have to simply be about escapism. They should always be entertaining. They should always be engaging. And I think while you're playing it, you should be having fun. And especially if you can share that time with other people, that's really important. I think that's a core, ethos that I like to adhere to when I create and I also play games. Like, we don't play games to be frustrated and hate them. That's just
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that there's a motivational component. I think that, and this dovetails a lot with the work that you're doing, and this is why I was so interested in seeing you on social media and getting into your Discord and talking to you and people who you've worked with about this stuff, because I think there's this motivational framework behind games where if you look at a game and you say, what really is a game? It's a series of challenges to overcome. Now, as a game creator, you're presenting challenges to people. I'm creating problems for you to solve. That's
Yeah.
what a DM does.
Yep.
That's what a game designer does. That's basically anybody who's making a thing for someone. It's a puzzle for them to unpack or a set of rules inside which they can perform, these challenges and find new ways of thinking. And I thought, like, that's still like life, right? It doesn't have to be that life is here and games are here and they don't have to talk to each other because this one's, we pretend we're not in life and this one's where we really are in life. I thought, if I make games a certain way, they can make you want to not just get better in the game, but also get better in life. Now, I don't think that it might be a little bit of, getting high on my own supply and saying like, oh, if you play Legacy of the Cage, you're going to go join a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym and like want to be a black belt. I don't know that that's true. If that is true and that happens, I want you to call me so I can talk to you. Like, I want to hear your story because that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think that if you look at games both as a method of escapism and enjoyment and communal, celebrating the challenges and joy of gaming with your friends and family, but also finding ways to handle things like loss. I don't know that games really talk about loss in I don't want to say healthy way, but in a way that makes you realize that losing isn't the end of the world. It's just the end of the game. But what does that mean? Like, if you lose in real life, what does it mean? The end of the game is not like, it's literally death, right? To be morbid about it, but
Yeah.
the end of losing something, a job, an opportunity, money, your bike, whatever it is, it's like, okay, you have to figure out a way to overcome it. And most of us can adapt and overcome that. But similarly in a game, we should learn ways to be able to overcome that. We should learn ways to be able to lose the grace. We should learn ways to be able to try our hardest and realize that sometimes that's not the best. And that's okay, and that it's okay, because the next time you come back stronger. That's kind of the feedback loop in Legacy of the Cage is it's okay to lose. If you don't have an undefeated fighter, you don't suck at the game. In fact, that's probably impossible. It's not statistically impossible, but if I ran the math, it probably would be astronomically unlikely for you to have an undefeated fighter. And if you did, good for you. You did awesome. But guess what? You're probably not going to do it twice. So the idea is that as you're finding a way to strategically overcome these odds that are stacked against you, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And games should also be the safe place for you to learn the fundamentals of that, because you can apply that in life. Like, you go to your deadlift competition and you don't hit your target. Okay, so what? Would you give up deadlifting? No. You get back in the gym, right? And you come back next time or the next competition or the next year or whatever. You find a way to overcome it. And it's the same way with games. I think that there's a way that you can get people to believe in the framework and the foundation of the game and love it, and then also realize that it unlocks that special thing in their mind. They go, oh, it's just like life. Like if I lose my job, like I don't, whatever. I got knocked out. I get up. I dust myself off. I get back in the gym. I find a way to persevere. Okay, people depend on me. I have to do that. Same thing. So that's why I think that's my philosophy behind games. That's why I think they're so important. I think that there's, a lot more to them than I think meets the eye. I think people see games and are like, it's for kids. I'm like, no, games are like this really safe. I'd say safe just because like if you lose in a game, you don't really lose much, right?
Right. Yeah.
But they're a safe framework and sandbox for you to flex your strategic ability and your intellectual ability, and if you're doing like a physical game, your physical ability, and learn the ins and outs of life. And when you expose children to that, they tend to develop healthier attitudes toward that later on. And even if you've never done it, if you're an adult who's never been in an athletic pursuit or a game, a gamified life pursuit, playing games like this should help you motivate to figure out that next step and to, not treat your life or whatever's happened to you up until now as a big loss, right? It's one step on your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of falter, is they see life as this all or nothing, pass fail perfectionist trap, but then they escape into some form of fantasy world, video games, tabletop games, like literally whatever it is. It could be reading, could be writing, because it doesn't have that failure feedback. I guess it does have a failure feedback loop to where it's like you fail, you respawn type of thing, and then they can become that main character that they want to be in real life, but they're just so afraid of breaking out of that NPC bubble or that comfort zone. I always say they're afraid to leave the tavern to become the main character.
I love that saying. Man. It just hits. I think that's just a brilliant way of putting it.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And one thing, this is kind of going, like you said, you want to go too far into the clouds. Well, let's.
We can.
Yesterday, I was having this conversation with Tanya during one of our walks, and it was like, there's this theory that, we all live in a simulation, right? That the Matrix is real, that type of thing.
Very familiar. Yep.
And it's like, I think statistically, it's more probable that we are, just based on the size of the universe. And I was like, okay, well, what if we are playing in just a video game? Like, that's pretty much what a simulation would be, just like a literal video game. How would that change my actions, knowing that none of this is real? Right? Like, you could be very nihilistic and be like, well, what's the point? None of this matters. But you can be like, well, hey, if none of this matters, I can take that chance. I can quit my job to start this business. I don't recommend it. That's what I did. It was not without its sleepless nights. Or you can ask, speak to your crush. You can start a side business. You can start a workout program. You can play a new game. Like, you can try to build your own platform, build your own games. Like, you can take those chances that are probably that you're holding yourself back from, while having that relief off your shoulders that, like, look, we're just living in a giant simulation, and what happens here doesn't really matter. And so if I do take this chance and crash and burn, I can use this as feedback to start again and retry.
Yes. There's this sense of, and I don't remember exactly where I heard it, that like if you can find a way to lose your sense of embarrassment, like, you have nothing to lose, because a lot of people are just embarrassed about the idea of like looking bad or failing, or what is failing? Like, what is failure? You can't buy a cup of failure. Like, you can't go to the store and buy a box of failure. It's not really a real thing. We invented it in our minds to describe a set of circumstances that we think are supposed to be negative, but in reality, it's not a thing, right? It just, you didn't get the thing you wanted. Okay, like, what changed? Well, you didn't get the thing you wanted. You can try again or go for a different thing, but nothing really changed. You didn't like lose the game. You don't have to respawn.
Yeah, you're in the same spot you were before you even tried.
Right.
And if anything, you've learned more about it.
Exactly. That's the idea. It's like, now you've definitely got some more experience. You've leveled up. One of your stats went up. Maybe it's intelligence. Maybe it's wisdom. Maybe it's dexterity. Whichever one of those went up, okay, leverage that. Use it. Go find a way to make it a better day tomorrow. If you can lose your sense of embarrassment, you don't have this sense of shame. It's like, oh, I went to go do a thing and I was ashamed of it. I tried going to a gym. I see people say this all the time, online and in fitness communities, even the ones that I'm involved in real life. The trainers that I work with and my friends who are all coaches, and they all own the gyms. I'm just like big gym rat guy now. They're always like, people are really nervous about their first day, and they're like, we get it, but what do you think we're going to do? Laugh you out of the room? Like, you came here, you asked us for help. Okay, you want to get better. Day one is always going to be hard no matter what because you don't know what to expect. But come on day two because like you got over the hump. That was your first challenge and you did it. And they're like, oh, I can do this. Oh, well, I didn't lift as much as I wanted to. And like they're like, nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to write it down. And then next week you are going to lift as much as you want, or maybe in 1 month or maybe in 6 months. But like the point is we're making you better. We're helping you find ways to unlock your potential. And what was the shame? Oh, you didn't know how to do an Olympic overhead press? Okay, well, almost none of us do, right? So your expectations were ridiculous. And your sense of failure and like what wasn't acceptable wasn't real. So you're here and you're doing it. Like, continue on that path. And a lot of people need to really erase that sense of like, what are the expectations I'm setting? What is failure? And oftentimes it's not even real.
Yeah, failure. I think Alex Ramosi says something like this, to paraphrase. It's like failure is how you feel other people perceive you. And so like let's say if I walk out my door and I trip and fall, nobody sees me, I'm not like a failure, I'm not embarrassed. But if Tanya sees me, then she'll probably laugh at me, and then there'll be like that sense of embarrassment, that sense of like failure to an extent. And so it's like it's only when other people perceive how other people perceive you, and it's how you feel or how you perceive other people perceive you. And so it's like if you just stop caring about what other people think and what other people feel about you, then that will help break through that barrier. And for that person who's stepping foot into the gym for the very first time, feeling that sense of embarrassment, that sense of failure, that sense of I don't belong here, which everybody has, that first time.
Everybody has it.
It's like, look, you're doing what many other people don't even have the courage to do, and that's even just setting foot in the door of the gym. And so it's like when you put that in perspective to where I always like to air it as like we're elitists, that you're better than people who are kind of traveling the path behind you because they don't even have the courage to step through the door. Like that should empower you to move forward. Knowing that everybody, it's a cliche. Everyone already starts at the same spot kind of thing. Like everybody's already been down that path. Nobody's staring at you. Everybody's worrying about that you're staring at them. I definitely understand that, but that doesn't change the mindset. It's like, I don't care if nobody's actually staring at me. My mind says everybody's staring at me, and so that makes it just as real. And so
it's hard to undo that.
Yeah. And then just saying like, look, this is a challenge. Going through the doors of the gym is a challenge that I just overcame. Like you said, we completed that quest. We gained that XP. We completed that first day. Now let's complete that second day. And if we see it as those challenges, like you said, as those ways to level up, rather than those hindrances, I feel like it's a very empowering mindset versus a very diminishing mindset.
Yeah, you framed it. So what's the cliche? The heaviest weight in the gym is the front door, right? Like exactly. Once you get past that, you're awesome. But you framed it in a really good way. I don't think you said it exactly, but you said all these words. So you framed it as people see things as either chances to fail or opportunities to succeed, challenges to overcome. That's basically if you can say, I'm not seeing things as an opportunity to fail, like a chance to look stupid or not get what I want, but instead I'm looking at it as a challenge to overcome or like a quest to be completed. You've really unlocked a new way of thinking for them. I think that's what you do really well in your community, is like you get people to look at things that prior to them approaching you as things to like ways to fail, ways to look stupid in public, ways to be embarrassed, ways to not get what I want. And you're like, no, let's just look at it as a quest, right? Would you give up on the quest that you wanted to go on? Like, did you give up on the quest in the game you played last week? Yeah. No, you found a way to finish it, or you found a way to work around the rules so you could get that thing that you wanted. It's the same, right? Like you're on a quest. You didn't look at the game you were playing as an opportunity to fail. Like I don't play a game and be like, whoa, how many chances of dying do I have between now and like when I'm going to stop playing? It's like, that would be, no one would play that game, right? Like, so
those are the people
you
that
have
do
to flip the
deathless
script
runs on Souls games.
Right, exactly. Like you have to flip the script. So I think you do a great job at doing that. And the more people we can get to do that, whether by, just directly saying, here's a way to think of this, or demonstrating the power of a fitness journey or a fitness workout regimen, or just anything that gets you to try something new and challenging. It doesn't have to be fitness, but we're talking about fitness today. Or you play a game, and that game kind of unlocks in your head this idea that, oh, I could do this myself with my own physical performance, or my own business performance, or my own, personal life performance. If we do that, we're going to make the world better, like one person at a time.
Yeah.
I'm totally convinced.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. One thing that I really try to do is, and I've said this multiple times, but it's like just break it down to the simplest actions. So you mentioned the heaviest weight is the front door. So make that your goal. Just set foot in the gym. Set foot in the gym, go sit down in the little waiting area and scroll on your phone, read a magazine, whatever it is. But you accomplish that goal that day. And chances are you're not going to drive to the gym, open the door, sit down, scroll on Instagram for an hour and leave. You're going to be looking around and be like, okay, well, I can walk on the treadmill for a few minutes and, listen to a podcast or something. So it's like you're doing whatever you can to essentially trick yourself to take action. And
Yes.
it's like the, like bartering. You're bartering with yourself. All right, I'll just go into the gym. Think I won't do anything. I'll just go in there. All right, I'll walk on the treadmill for a little bit, but then I'm leaving. And then, oh, okay, well, that machine's open. I'll see what that machine can do. And like before you know it, you did a full workout when you didn't even want to go to the gym.
Yes. Yes. It's just a beautiful way of, I mean, from a game designer and player's perspective, we would look at that as like gamifying the experience. Like it's just one more, like, oh look, there's a shiny diamond over there. Oh, I want to get that thing. Like, oh, I heard there's a thing in that cave over there. Like, oh, I'll just take a look in that cave. But okay, at the end of it, I slayed the dragon and I got the thing. But like, if you don't dangle that carrot, you're not interested in even thinking about it. You don't press start by going to the gym or like waking up and putting your shoes on. You don't even have a chance. So as soon as you do that, the game of life, the simulation sort of reveals itself, and it's very hard to get off that that path once you're on it. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm such a silly gym rat that like I'll go to the gym and do my routine, and I'll be like, what other fun things are in here for me to play with? Like I don't even know how to use half of them, but I'm gonna go read the little sticker, or ask someone, and find out. And like if it's fun, I'll do it, and if not, I'll probably look stupid. But who cares if I look stupid? It's like maybe it'll feel really good and make me better and give me good biceps or something like that. Just let's play around.
Yeah, yeah, and everyone else is worried about themselves looking stupid, right? And I yes, I that's actually one thing that I'll tell my clients is if we go to the gym for like the first time as we are kind of exploring, like let's get comfortable with what you're used to. If it's like dumbbells and body weight, let's start there. But then like at the end of every session, try a new machine. Like you don't have to do a full 3 sets or anything like that, but just try one machine, and then the next day try a different machine, and then like before you know it, you're like, oh, I know pretty much what every machine does, and then we're throwing those into the workouts so you can kind of expand your repertoire rather than getting thrown into a 3-day PPL split that's all machines. It's like I don't know what any of these do, right? So you can kind of like slowly integrate it.
Yeah, it's hard to learn those new things when you're trying to do it all at once. I mean, going back to a game framework, you wouldn't like. There's no put it this way, no modern game is designed in such a way as to open up the entire world and universe and all the options to you the second you press start. Because why? You look at that and get overwhelmed, and you'd be like, well, I don't know how to do any of this, and none of it makes any sense, and I'm quitting, and I'm going to go play the game I've been playing for 10 years. What they're designed to do is get you to press start and give you a nice rolling, gradual incline in both difficulty and information and control. Whether that's D&D, kind of depends on your GM, but they're making good products now to like ramp it up, or a board game with sort of introductory, like we're going to do one round like this with our hands open so we can see what everybody's doing. Now close them, and now shuffle the cards. Same thing with video games where there's very interactive tutorials, and like you don't get when you start a modern Zelda game, you don't get every tool. Right. You have to unlock all those tools. If they just dumped them on you, you'd be like, I don't know what to do. Link, do something. It's like, this isn't even fun. It's just, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So they give you that small, like, oh, there's a thing in the distance. Go to that thing. Okay, here's a stick. Swing the stick. Oh, you broke the stick. Okay, get a new stick. So you like learn how the mechanics work. It's the same thing with a gym routine or a physical routine. You can't give someone that whole 10 machine workout, 3-day split, 4-phase program. They're going to be like, I don't know where to start. So just like one thing at a time, pick up the weight, move it. How'd it feel? Great. Good. Do it again tomorrow. We're going to add one more. And then you do that, it works. So good. It's all simulation.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what I do in the most recent ebook that I've done, the 12-month beginners 12-month beginners roadmap. It starts off with bodyweight workouts, and then by the end of the year, you're doing a 4-day intermediate power building split in the gym. And so it's like you started off doing 3 bodyweight workouts at home, and now you're hitting heavy weights for like a 5x5.
Yeah.
All because you kind of progress through there. But I want to shift gears. How did you, because like we're kind of talking about starting small and then building, this big
Sure.
program, big routine.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you do that with building a game? So like you had that inception, you had that idea, and then you kind of mapped it all out, like did a mind map.
Yeah.
How did that
Yep.
become a reality physical product?
It's a good question, and it dovetails with sort of my traditional career or path, if you want to think of it that way. So for about almost 20 years now, I've been a user experience designer. So I've worked in the software world quite a bit. So this is a theme in software: is when you're designing things, you start with sort of the atomic element and figure out that core of the experience that works really well, and then build off of it. If you try to build a piece of software, any platform or product, by just kind of throwing the whole kitchen sink at it, it's not cohesive. It doesn't make any sense, especially to the people who have to use it. Like, your users are just going to be baffled, confused, and like walk away. Your competitors are going to win. So this is no different. I have a kind of innate design process now, after having honed it for so many years, where I just went, what's the core of Legacy of the Cage? And I said, like, well, there has to be some idea of progression. Okay, so that's like the progression system, but how do you get there? Like, what's the quest? What's the gameplay loop that gets you there? And I thought, well, it's the fight, obviously. If you did nothing else, and all you wanted to do is sit down, and I mentioned this earlier, if you all you want to do is sit down and just roll a fight, you could do it, and you should do it, and that should matter the most. So I went, okay, let's find a fun way to have a fight. And I came up with the mechanics, dice-based, segments or turns, or they add up to rounds, and then your whole fight kind of takes place organically. But that's it. Like I said, if we get the fight right, the rest of the game is going to be fine. And so I created these fight mechanics, and I created there's a little bit of hidden, if you're playing head-to-head, there's some hidden information, like a poker game, like you both reveal your actions at the same time, and then you see who goes first, and then you roll the dice to see whose action succeeds, and then stuff happens as a consequence. And I brought it to my friends who I was playing a ton of games with. Obviously COVID times, we're all just kind of like locked in our rooms looking for stuff to do. And I said, I came up with this game. We got to try it. And they're like, sure, dude, whatever you want. Like we'll play. We're playing anything now, but you designed a game. This sounds like fun. And I got a lot of really good feedback, and it was very positive. And not just because they're my friends, because I told them, be honest. Like,
Yeah.
tell me what this really is. This really hitting it for you? Is this like we got to scrap it and start over? And they're like, no, we want to play again. We want to play again. And I said, okay. So I have the core mechanic kind of figured out. Whether the numbers are right or wrong, irrelevant. The point is, people find interest in this mechanic, and I brought it to a Discord server that I got, again, involved in just randomly. I'm like, game design Discord servers. And I joined it and befriended some people there virtually, and I brought it to them, and they started playing it too. And they're like, I did some live tests with them, and they're like, you got something here. So I had that, like, what we call in the design world MVP, or minimum viable product. And I said, okay, we got to build on this, right? And then I did. I just built the sort of the meta progression on top of it. And I tried to figure out how the externalities of fighting, the results of fighting, and the way you build your character or your fighter would affect the fight. So basically, it all comes back to the fight. I literally wrote it in the book, and in the second version, it's a little bit more emphasized as the fight is the thing. If, the fighters fight. That's the only thing you have to do in this game. If you don't want to play with teams or leagues, or you have a promoter or run this big thing, you don't want to do a full season solo, whatever. Fighters fight. The only thing you can't do is not fight. So if I get that right, I can build the rest on it. And that's what I did, like one step at a time. Okay, do skills work? Yes. Okay, which skills work? These. Let's keep them. Let's throw these other ones out. Does this mechanic work? And over time, the iterative design process revealed what you see today in the original version of Legacy of Cage, and the next version is going to build even further on that. Nice. So yeah.
Nice. Hell yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who might have that budding idea in the back of their head of a game or story or some form of project?
So make the smallest, easiest version of it that you possibly can that makes sense. Okay, you don't have to have like a theme. You don't have to have artwork. A lot of people, I see people get tripped up on this all the time in design discords and communities and stuff, and they're like, yeah, but I don't have artwork. I can't hire an artist, and I don't have the layout figured out. And I'm like, well, how do you play let's just play the game. Like, what do I need? 2 dice and some cards? Like, what do you need? And they're like, oh, but it's like the art's not. Like, dude, is there a game, right? So all you need to do is get the fundamental mechanics, whatever you can. Like, I keep a dice tray in front of my computer, like at all times. I have notebooks, I have cards and stuff. If an idea hits me, I go, which dice makes sense? Okay, D20, good. Okay, let's roll it. find a way to make that game with whatever crap you have laying around your house. Like deconstruct all your other games, pull out the pieces, and put them together in a way that gets your idea from your head onto the tabletop. And once you have that in minimally playable format, play it. Make it make sense. Have other people play it. Find out if it makes sense. You're creating basically a very cheap, very effective prototype of your game. And the more of those you do, the faster you do them, the sooner you're going to get to that idea that really wins. If you go back to the 10 ideas, that idea muscle, it's the same thing. If you write down 10 game ideas a day and you prototype a few of them, yeah, like some of them are going to suck. In fact, most of them are going to suck. But you're going to hit that one where you go, this feels good. Get the dice out, get the cards out, get your pencils out, get the tape out, hack it up however you have to, and bring it to your brother, sister, girlfriend, wife, mother, friend, dorm room, dorm mate, whatever it is, work people, somebody. Go online. There's a lot of tools you can do. A tabletop simulator I've used quite a bit to prototype games.
Nice.
You don't have to be a genius to do it. It comes with all the basic chits and tools and stuff, and you just kind of like drop them where you want and say, open game, come play. And like you have like a note card, a virtual note card. You go, here's the rules, and some random person will play your own game with you on this virtual tabletop. Just put it from your head onto the tabletop. That's step number one. And then after that, you just iterate like I just described I did with Legacy of the Cage. You'll get to artwork. Like you'll get to, or you might not. It might not matter. As long as you have that game and people can try it and figure out what works and what doesn't, and you're getting that feedback, you're off to the races.
Nice. That's funny because as you were saying that, I was thinking, like, I'm sure we've all done this where, we're 6 years old and we take 4 sheets of notebook paper and tape them all together, and we just use colored pencils, and we just made this board game with little scraps piece of paper, and like you wouldn't even think twice about, oh, this isn't perfect. I need to get this all artworded up. I need to get this actually printed off on actual cardboard. It's like, no, I'm doing this and we're having fun with it. And then now our adult brains is like, no, everything needs to be perfect before we can even show it to the public.
Somewhere around here, I have exactly what you just described. I think it's in my closet, but I have the first game I ever made, which was exactly that. It was a box from like a department store. The shirt boxes they used to have years ago for like Christmas gifts. And I took that, and I took some like a large notebook paper, and I took some Monopoly pieces and some dice that I found, and I drew a board, and I had pieces, and I had like very basic rules that I don't even know if they make any sense, but they did to 7 or 8 year old Matt. And I put them together, and I go, here's my game. And I played it with my parents, I played it with my friends, and they were like, hey, you made a game. I drew the pictures, like they're 7-year-old pictures. Who cares? Like they're not brilliant, but it felt like a game. There's a theme, there are rules, there are mechanics. You could play it, you could win it. That's it. That's all there was to it. And to your point, like nobody cared. Like this isn't professionally designed. You don't have a D&D cover artist doing your artwork. I can't play this game. It's like, no, dude, it's a game. You made it.
Yeah.
You build from there.
Yeah, and the fact that you've kept it this whole time is probably, obviously says something to itself, but that probably was at least part of the seed that was planted that ultimately led to Legacy of the Cage and PlayArchitect Games.
Easily. There's a lot to be said about, finding that thing that you did when you were a kid that you could do all day and you would lose time. And you could argue in my case it was artwork. I like to draw a lot. I like to sketch, and I like to just, make stuff. I used Legos extensively, obsessively, pathologically. But I'd also use those things to create worlds. For Legos, I would create like a fantasy world, and there would be like a dragon, and there'd almost be like these game elements to it where, there's a shop and you buy your sword and your potion, you take it over here. And I didn't exactly get dice involved, but there was the idea that it could be a game simulated by my child brain. And I was always doing things like that. And obviously it led to, some actual board/card games. And I think that struck me so well, so deeply as a child that I found that world to get lost in. And as an adult who found a way to not be embarrassed about the act of putting something creative in front of other people, because that's challenging. Like making a thing and showing it to other people is like bearing yourself to the world, and you feel like, man, if this doesn't go right, this is gonna be terrible. But the truth is, I hate to say it, most people don't care. I read there's a book by Sahil Bloom that just came out maybe 3 or 4 months ago. He's hit it kind of big in the speaker circuit, but it's called 5 Types of Wealth. And I think the 3 of them are actually what you mentioned, like your 3 pillars. I think it's wealth, mental health, physical health, monetary health, etc. And he even says in some of his communications, like, most people don't care. Most people are focused on themselves,
Yeah.
and that's about it. So if you do something that you don't think is amazing or doesn't take off like gangbusters, most people are just going to ignore it, shrug it, or never even know about it. Just like, okay, sure, you did a thing and I don't care. Which is still defeating into itself, but no one's going to like, hey, look at the loser who made the game that doesn't work. No one's going to do that, right? So once you get past that imaginary fear of what this thing could turn out to be, and you just put your stuff out into the world, you realize like, oh, I really can do that thing that lit me on fire as a kid. And I think that's true about anybody for whatever pursuit they have kind of hiding inside themselves that they've buried for so long. Like, pull it back out, put it on the table, literally or figuratively, whatever you have to do to find it and bring it to real life. Find a way to overcome that fear, because it's worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing that I've learned about like social media. The good thing with a bad post that nobody sees is that nobody sees it. And so it's like nobody knows that it was a bad post. And so you just post a different one, post another one. So it's always about hit and send. But yeah, I know we're at time here. So how can people get a hold of you? How can people get a hold of your games? How can people follow you? How can people support you, et cetera, et cetera?
Yep. So I've posted a lot less on Instagram these days, but at PlayArchitect on Instagram. PlayArchitect.games is my website. And if you go to Drive-Thru RPG, that's where I sell most of my games. You can search for Legacy of the Cage, the Gauntlet. That'll pop you right up. I have a page on there for PlayArchitect Games, or Space Sport is the other game I mentioned. But mainly my website, Drive-Thru, and you can hit me up on Instagram. That's mostly where I'm lurking. And obviously, if I'm in a Discord server that you happen to be in, my handle is usually PlayArchitect or Matt/PlayArchitect. And just say hi, send me a DM. And if you happen to play the game and you like it, great. If you want to talk about weightlifting, great.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, you've been pretty active in our Discord, the Phoenix Nets. So I know that would be a good place to get in contact. But yeah, no, hey, man, this was a great conversation. I appreciate you hopping on. And I guess, yeah, until next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful time.
Yeah.